The first World Social Forum took place in Brazil in January 2001. And the decision to launch it was taken only a few months before. And this is how it happened. I was in Paris at the time. I was Director General of Le Monde Diplomatique, and I received two Brazilian comrades and friends, Chico Whitaker and Oded Grajew, and they were returning from Davos. And they were shocked, of course, by Davos. And they said to me, well, we should do something against Davos, organize a sort of counter Davos. And I said the year before, and Samir was there too, the World Forum for Alternatives had organized a sort of counter Davos in Davos. But it's nearly impossible to have to organize anything in such a small city with hundreds of grandees of all sorts and the Swiss police. But we did it. And the year after, then in 2000, I said to Oded and Chico, well, it's ridiculous to organize something in Switzerland or even in France, because we are in the same continent. If we really want to do something different, it must be somewhere in the world, but not in Europe or in the United States. And I said, when we examine the different possible countries, the one which seems best appropriate is Brazil. Why Brazil? Because of the existence of popular movements of a party, of the PT, of many organizations. And in Brazil, where I suggested Porto Alegre. It could have been Belo Horizonte or São Paulo or any other city, but it just happened that I had studied the participatory budget of Porto Alegre, and I thought that it was a good symbol to organize something in a city where they had put in practice this participatory budget. And we decided that at that stage that the forum should call itself World Social Forum as opposed to the World Economic Forum of Davos. So it began as an anti-Davos outfit. And then our Brazilian comrades organized themselves. I went to Brazil several times afterwards, and finally they did it. And it was really extraordinary, because the decision taken in May for a World Social Forum found its outcome, its result, in January 2001. So at the beginning it was an anti-Davos. In Davos, we have bankers or banksters, governments, businessmen, all sorts of men. And they meet not only in Davos, but in many other venues. But there was at the time no existing space for social movements of the whole world, organizations, students to meet. So the forum was a forum of organizations, not of individuals. There were individuals, but as members of organizations, which is totally different from the Occupy movement. And when you asked me about the relationship with politics, so when we said it might be in Porto Alegre in January, of course, all the Brazilians who formed the organizing committee were members or close to the PT. But they didn't have the backing of the PT. They were members of the CUT, of the Mouvement des Santerres, etc. So when the idea progressed, Lula, who was not president at the time, not yet, asked me to come and meet him, because he wanted to know exactly what we meant with the social forum. Would it be against the party, against the PT, or not? And I gave him the example of ATTAC, which was, at the time I was president of ATTAC, France. I explained to him how we functioned. That is a social movement which makes proposals, which doesn't intend to replace parties, which acts on a different sphere, in a different sphere. And he understood fairly well, and he gave us the green light. We were speaking with Eric. If we hadn't had the green light of Lula PD, we could have organized it anyway. And if not in Porto Alegre, in some other city of Brazil, or perhaps in Mexico or another country. But it was better to have the PT with us, though they kept at a distance. They provided, the city of Porto Alegre and the government of Rio Grande do Sul provided considerable financial and logistical assistance. Without them, it would have been much more difficult. But they did help, but they didn't try, and that's much to their credit, they didn't try to influence, to say we want this or that. No, they left us alone. There was sufficient confidence with them, between them and us, for them not to try to manage to control everything. But of course, during the forum, Lula was invited in several not round tables, because they was in an immense room. There was in Gigantino, which is a gymnasium which can accommodate 20,000 persons. He was one of the, if not the leading star of the forum, but keeping a distance as a party from the social movements. It was a bit complicated because in the PT, not everyone, there were disagreements within them. Some were closer to the leadership, others were less close, but we managed, and it started like that. And one phrase I often use is the following, referring to Aldo Moro's, the Italian prime minister who was assassinated by the Red Brigades, when he said once that between the Communist Party, the Italian Communist Party, and Christian democracy, there should be parallel convergences. Normally, parallels never converge. But you can have, on the one hand, social movements who advocate this or that measure, and on the other hand, in a parallel way, political parties which go in the same direction, each in its own separate line. And I think this could apply as well to the Occupy movement, but we'll discuss that later.